DisplayPort 2.1 season is upon us. And that means I need fast monitors. ASRock was kind enough to oblige and sent their PG27FFX2A, the first of many, many, many high refresh displays I'm going to be using for experiments and fun stuff. This is a full HD, it's a 1080p monitor, it's 27 inches, it's IPS, but it's 520 hertz. Oh, it's also Display HDR 400 and FreeSync. Let's unbox and see what you get. My goodness, that's a lot of accessories in the box. I love that ASRock is sticking with their Phantom Gaming design, though. It's not a radical departure from past designs, because it comes with some cool accessories and some cool design thoughtfulness. First off, it's a rigid metal stand, metal reinforced, metal internals, metal skeleton, ever how you want to think about that. The stand also has built-in Wi-Fi antennas on the sides here behind the monitor. This can actually be better than a lot of the bundled wireless antennas that come with your motherboard. Having it away from the computer and away from RF sources behind the monitor can make a substantial difference for your wireless connection for your machine. Now, if you're gaming and you're serious enough to be gaming at 500 hertz, 520 hertz, I would recommend that you wire in your computer. Find a way to run that Cat6 cable. This is pretty easy assembly. ASRock also includes these cable sock. You just wrap it around your cables like that, and now your cables can hide in the sock. This is pretty cool. Makes your cables a lot neater. Also in the box, you get a standard power cable, an HDMI cord. Look, let's get the Ultra Certification holographic sticker that definitely can't be counterfeited. This is a real cable, unlike what you buy on Amazon. Then we got our DisplayPort cable, our Wi-Fi antenna cable, and your registration, warranty, installation manual guide for that. And then we got our actual monitor. Hey, look at that. It has speaker grills for basic built-in speakers. For the I/O, we have a single DisplayPort, 2 HDMI, a USB 5 gigabit with 2 Type A ports. So you can do USB into this and use that as a hub. And then we've got a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. On the back here, we've got a standard 100 millimeter VESA mounting situation. It is recessed, so take that into account when you're getting your VESA mounting set up. I love that it toollessly snaps together and there's no external power brick. Our stand is height adjustable from there to there, but it does not rotate. It rotates a little bit so you can, if your desk isn't level, you can fix that, but you're not going to be running this thing in portrait mode. Now, I do find it interesting that this has a USB 5 gigabit, so you'll need a USB Type A to B 5 gigabit cable, but that was not included in the cable bundle. Fortunately, that's about a $5 USB cable, so if you're thinking about doing an esports lounge, it does have a Kensington lock port on the back, so you can lock it down so nobody could steal the monitor, or at least if they stole it, they would be breaking the case. For the on-screen display controls, there's 5 buttons on the back on this side, and that's how you control your on-screen display. All right, that's going to do it for the unboxing. Let's do some diagnostics and burn-in testing and color calibration and see where it goes. Being an IPS display, it does have a little bit of glow, and on a pure black screen, you can see the backlight bleed in a dark room. It's about a 4 or 5 on the black levels on the Blur Busters website. Now, after having used this monitor for a while on a desktop computer, not in the studio, and playing games, I'm not any good at playing games, but Helldivers 2 and Clar Obscur Expedition 33, and trying to actually get a 5090 to run this thing at 520 hertz, which is a little bit of a challenge in and of itself. I'm shocked that an IPS panel can be made this good. I mostly spend my time on OLED displays these days, so I'm really used to OLED. And so that this monitor is as responsive as it is shocking to me, because this is not the IPS that I remember. Is it as fast as an OLED? No, not even close. I could tell a big difference. But in the high-speed footage and doing the testing, I was surprised that this panel really is running at north of 200 hertz. I wouldn't have thought that kind of thing was possible with IPS technology. When I'm checking our input latency, like what is our input latency? How does this, is it, delaying a frame or something like that? You've got about 3.5 milliseconds of input latency when it's running with a 520 hertz signal on the DisplayPort side. That's really good. That's not enough to buffer a full frame. Well, I guess it is at 500 hertz, but not at 60 hertz or something like that. But it's still really responsive when we're running in those configurations. And if you look at, some of the Blur Busters tests where we're doing the video game sweep like this one, or the text sharpness, because it's getting the text sharpness right is hard, even if something like this test is okay. But the text sharpness test is really good. It is not perfect, though. If you look at the sharpness of really small text, because this is a 27-inch 1080p display, the edges are a little soft. And I can't really tell if that's the matte finish, because this is a matte display, and the matteness of the display is awesome. The softness of the sharpness of the text might be more to do with the matte overlay than the actual display, but I'm leaning slightly toward the display. Like, I think there's something in the display or the pre-processing or maybe the sub-pixel rendering in Windows that makes it just a little soft. Because if you mess around in the OSD and you turn on, HDR and you're running a custom video mode, which is what I ended up doing to get the color calibration, it's on the Level 1 Text website, it seemed like it made the text quite a bit sharper. There's also an overdrive option, OD. I don't think you need the overdrive option, but it does seem like it makes the text a little more crisp when the overdrive option is on. And so that's the other thing that makes me think that it's more panel than the matte aspect of this display. But again, I've gotten used to spending most of my time on an OLED, which has an insanely glossy display. And I really don't like insanely glossy displays. And so like that aspect of this display and getting used to this display, I sort of miss having the matte display, the anti-glare aspects of that. The border is very small. If you look closely at it, you can see that the matte display has its own border, and then the physical bezel for the panel is part of the border. And so it's not quite as small of a bezel as it looks like, but it is very, very small. If you're going to set up, a grid of these monitors or have multiple monitors running the dual display, something like that, it's not going to be off-putting. The actual display area is going to be really close together. So nothing bad there. This thing also has DDC and CI. You can set up a Linux script to change inputs on this. If you want to run like an Xbox or a PlayStation on one of your HDMI inputs and DisplayPort for your desktop computer, when you turn your Xbox on, it can automatically switch, wake up the display. The DDC CI stuff works pretty good. So that's nice to see. Otherwise, the on-screen display is it's uncomplicated. There's not a ton of stuff in the on-screen display menu. I was able to customize the color profile to get a color calibration thing, and it was nice to see 98% coverage and over 123% for our color coverage. And so it's an IPS display. It's doing pretty well there, and it's doing pretty well in terms of the refresh and everything else. It also shows on the on-screen display if it's display stream compression and some other nice features, which, what kind of signal it is that you're dealing with, and HDR 400. It does HDR 400. HDR 400 is what it is. So that worked out of the box with Windows 11. That was nice to see. It was also nice to see that it worked at 520 hertz with our APU, thanks to display stream compression. Technically, that's DisplayPort 1.4, and uncompressed DisplayPort 1.4 would top out on this kind of a display at 240 hertz. But we can get all the way to 520 hertz thanks to display stream compression. So that's fun. Now for the gameplay testing, I'm using kind of an overkill Threadripper system. It's our Falcon Northwest system. You don't need this is not a gaming machine, but it was a convenient machine that I had here already, and that can definitely push north of 400 FPS in certain games. Now I was playing Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2, you're not going to get 400 FPS, but I was getting an absurdly high frame rate at 1080p with this configuration and our relatively low input latency. I've been experimenting with the Keychron KH10 keyboard, testing it with the KVM and everything else. It's a nice keyboard. It's got pretty solid keycaps. I like it. It's been an interesting setup. It's been interesting gaming on this. So that's been a quick look at the PG27FFX2A from ASRock. 520 hertz and an IPS display that is actually shockingly good. Like the panel, I would not have thought an IPS panel would actually be this fast. Like, yeah, it'll take a 520 hertz signal, but can it display something at 520 hertz? The gaming B-roll scrolling, I think, sort of speaks for itself. ASRock has some other high refresh displays that I'm looking forward to taking a look at, but this is the first one. This is sort of the first volley. If there's any game that you want me to try to test or try to get some more high-speed footage with the camera, 520 hertz is pushing the limits of what I'm able to capture and test the normal way that I do that. So I'm thinking about setting up a new contraption to do some additional testing, but yeah, I'm still working on that. So we might revisit that in a future video. And Whittle, this is Level 1. If you have any questions or I missed anything or you want me to test something specific, let me know. I'll be glad to try to work on that. I'm signing out, and you can find me in the Level 1 forums.